All right. Well, welcome to the Rollwise Podcast, the weekly show that explores all things related to role playing games and other things as well, because we are sort of expanding our horizons. We're not really sure.
Sometimes more
Um,
random than others.
oh, definitely more random than others. My name is Mike, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my two excellent friends, Brent
Hello, everybody.
and Jeff.
Hello.
And so this week we got a few things that we're going to talk about. First is that we are continuing our weekly live streams. We're kind of deciding how we want to do our live streams a little bit, and we're probably going to be focusing on shorter adventures to kind of put a system through the paces. Right now we're running Fabula Ultima on Mondays, and I think the adventure is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, and so we're probably going to be wrapping that up however we can in maybe the next week or so. But then we're going to continue to play other games. So if you have games you'd like to see us try out and play on stream, don't hesitate to comment, let us know, and we can see if that's a game we can have access to, or if it's a game we want to try. Anybody that wants to recommend Fatal, go fuck yourself.
There will be somebody who knows. If somebody's listening to it and they know about it, there's somebody that will suggest it.
Quit mentioning it. Quit putting it out there in the ether.
I remember
the game that shall be named.
There was a what is that name of that? System Mastery. They had it as a Patreon reward. They're like, if we get this much, we'll review the game that will not be named. And they're like, it took you guys a week.
Well, I mean, if we wanted to start a Patreon and then we wanted to make it a stretch goal, then sure, we could try it out.
That's a pretty stretchy goal.
But it would be a really big stretch goal for me to, first of all, read the rules. Second of all, decide how to apply the rules, and then of course subject these guys to an adventure that was system appropriate. So just so you guys know, if you haven't caught our Fabula Ultima stuff, why don't you catch it on our live stream selection? I think I have a playlist for that going on YouTube, and let us know what you like. Let us know how I can improve. I am not the perfect game master, dungeon master, keeper, whatever system rules person you want to call me, but I'll take any criticism and I'll see what I can do with it. And then, of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about cozy games. We actually, I think I was reading Dicebreaker this week, and I saw that somebody had mentioned something about a game called Teatime Adventures, and we have some comments about it. I think we'll start there. Why don't we just go ahead and start with Teatime Adventures? For those of you that haven't read this game, it's got a second edition. So first of all, there was a first edition of Teatime Adventures. This article I read was about the second edition. So I obviously am not part of the crowd that caught this the first time around.
That's a passion project right there.
Hey, you know what? I think you play the game however you want to play it. And if you want to play it with like a feel good, like tea time backdrop, then fucking play it.
The reason that he's saying that is because it uses fifth edition D&D as its system. Is why he's saying you can play a game however you want.
I would like to point out that I don't mind fifth edition. I just am not a big fan of Hasbro right now.
There's things about fifth edition that I like, and there's things about fifth edition that I don't like. One of the things that I think is funny is how people will take a game like this tea time game, which I assume isn't about stabbing monsters ever, and then try and put it in fifth edition. Like that's what the game is for.
Well, so I mean, it directly leans away from that based on the article I'm reading here. It seems like Teatime Adventures. I mean, as it sounds like it kind of repackages everything in a much more, I wouldn't say a wholesome fashion, and it suggests basically having real life tea pairings. Recipes are introduced and stuff like that to kind of play alongside your fantasy tale. Now, I don't know the publisher of it. I think I'm going to try to find that real quick on drive-through if they have it. But it's just a different way to play.
Looks like it's Snowbright Studio, Mike.
Oh, it's Snowbright Studio. Sounds good.
What I'm saying is, why do you need to roll a d20 for having pretend? Just play pretend. I don't think you need a rule for that. You could have just like wrote a book without rules for it, or went and got any narrative system. Maybe a diceless one.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking pre-stream or pre-recording. there's just a lot of times where it's easy to, if you're going to create a game and don't want to do a system, to use a real popular system out there that allows you to, use their rules. I think it's easy because it makes the game, in theory, more approachable to a larger percentage of the population if they're familiar with the rule set already. But man, I get your point, Brent, that the feel of the game doesn't seem like the feel of Dungeons and Dragons.
And there's a marketing push. Like, I see that you can put 5th edition on your book, and anytime people look up 5th edition or Dungeons and Dragons, they'll see your book too. But like, I feel like it's a stretch.
Well, so just so we do them justice here, and we talk about Teatime Adventures appropriately.
Yeah.
Here's the actual description for the game, just so that we don't jump too far ahead. Is that Teatime Adventures is a non-violent role-playing game full of heartwarming magic, baked goods, and tea pairings for everyday adventure. Gather a few friends around a table and imagine yourselves in a fully realized village of the Oaken Bend, where you will help uncover the truth behind a series of mysterious mysteries. Teatime Adventures uses an easy-to-learn, family-friendly D20 system that's perfect for newcomers and veteran RPG players alike. Create invigorating elixirs at the snap of your fingers with kitchen magic, or travel through the very fabric of time and space by casting group spells using powerful harmony magic. And featuring 50 new spells, a host of magic items, custom spell creation rules that let you mix and match your components in ingenious ways.
That sounds neat.
And then it has some bullet points and stuff like that, like 200 pages of beautiful illustrations and all that. And don't get me,
the artwork looks really nice.
Yeah, the artwork looks solid. I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, first of all, what do they call it? The anthropomorphic, like animals and stuff like that. I do like those kind of like the animal worlds. Like Redwall was a really big book for me growing up and stuff like that. So seeing kind of like the,
sure,
happy animals and all those kind of things doing their everyday life is always kind of fun. It also includes an inclusive LGBTQ plus and disability friendly world that's welcoming to all, 4 wonderfully cozy mysteries for you and your friends to solve, and dozens of fantastical locations to take your adventure out on. And so I think the cool part about this is that, I mean, at first of all, because it seems like it's not D&D in its slaying, like dragon slaying glory, is that you could play this with any age almost. Like if you had a kid that you wanted to introduce to some form of role playing, you could still use a rule set that you're familiar with, but then you could introduce them to this kind of more magical world that hopefully is more about solving Scooby-Doo-esque mysteries than going and slaying the dragons, getting traumatized by zombies or what.
Well, now I feel old because you went Scooby-Doo and I was going Murder, She Wrote.
I just got hung up on traumatizing people with zombies.
Well, funny you should mention that. I have almost got Kelly, I'm sorry, my wife, I should be saying, I have convinced her to play a game that I found. And the game is actually Murder, She Wrote plus Eldritch Horrors set in like a New England Nantucket thing. And the game is actually
like it could work.
Brindlewood Bay is the role-playing game, I believe it's called. So that exists.
Which we talked about that a little bit off stream, and that definitely sounds interesting. I guess my point more is with this tea time game is it sounds like they put a lot of work into it. That they probably could have just made up a super simple rule set for themselves, or maybe just the idea of using the D20. Maybe just rolling a D20 means you have to say it's a D&D game. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know I don't know how the OGL works at this point, but maybe that's it. But like if you're simplifying it down, like what isn't combat that you like skill tests in D&D you roll, but like those aren't that
probably skill tests, ability checks.
But those aren't that interesting. Like those aren't really that interesting rolls. And if you're trying to solve a mystery, do you really want to go, yep, you failed to find that clue?
Well,
I really wish you would have rolled on that one good.
so maybe here's my challenge is that I have to go find a copy of this, purchase it to support to support Snowbright Studios, and obviously read through to see exactly how this wholesome adventure goes. Because I do have to say that at least for my brain and how it functions, when we looked at Golden Sky Stories, however many months ago that was, just reading through it, and basically its absolute aversion to any kind of like combat resolutions and everything like that created a different game, but it's like the type of game that I haven't necessarily focused on in so long that my brain is like, oh, well, how do you solve this mystery? Can you kick its ass?
Well,
No.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like an investigative games. If you're using dice, a lot of times it's
Mhm.
see if you find that clue, see if you don't find that clue, and like if it's all that,
Mhm.
like I don't necessarily like a d20 doesn't seem to be necessary. Like you could just do any, like you could use cards or whatever. Like you could use a different system. Like
Sure.
I guess that's what I mean by using the d20 system. It seems like a almost a too complex of a system for what they're, and they said they simplified it, which is good, because like I said, it seems like almost too complex of a system for
I just like that they had kitchen magic.
what they're going for.
You know, honestly,
Everything in the kitchen's magic.
what's
Yes.
always well, that's true. What's always interesting though is that like I really like it when they introduce some of those subsystems into games, and I think
Mhm.
that fifth edition benefits from this a little bit that I don't see other editions getting. Is that, you know, if you don't like a certain system within 5e, there's probably someone who's done a supplement that is like like pretty well thought out, the type of thing that you want to do. Like you're like, oh, I wish cooking was a bigger part of my fifth edition game. I mean, could you use this as a part, like as a way for you to run a Iron Chef cooking competition in your fifth edition game? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just
That
there's
that has always been the one of the really strongest parts about fifth edition. And I said this even before, is you can house rule the shit out of fifth edition. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really easy to, like, even if you want to make a class, like if you want to make a brand new class called the chef, like you could feasibly go out and just do that. Like you could sit down with the book, look at it, and be like, okay, what's their shtick? What's what abilities do they have right away? And then like and figure it out. Like making characters is easy. Like that's one of the things about, I will say, fifth edition does really well, is it is very good at running a focus-based game that you can basically house rule the shit out of.
Yeah. And obviously this type of wholesome adventuring might not be for everybody, but I could see how they could have a pretty good an audience for it, especially since, you know, you sometimes need a break from dungeons and
Yeah, well, no,
dragons.
sometimes you do, and honestly, it
Dungeons, yeah.
Brent just wants to be in dungeons all the time.
Terrifying people with zombies, no, I guess is what I need to say. Dungeons, yes. Terrifying with people with zombies, no. Okay.
I think it's a good way to introduce people to role playing that may not like some of the stereotypes of traditional role playing. People that appreciate, you know, different kinds of anime and manga that aren't, you know, like Berserk or, you know, the really violent ones. Well, there is so much manga in Japan.
Oh, there is, yeah.
I still remember. This is what helped me understand Eastern decompressed storytelling as compared to Western compressed storytelling. Is I read a golf manga, and panel after panel after panel of a ball spinning through the air, like one shot, like 4 pages, like 16, 20 panels of just this golf ball going through the air, bouncing, right? We don't do that in the West, you know, like we give our space to other places, but you know, stuff like Miyazaki, right? Miyazaki fans that want to do something. This seems like a setting that you could convince a Miyazaki fan to role play in.
Yeah,
You know?
you know, at different stakes and different approaches to how you play the game and stuff.
You know, is it going to appeal to everybody? No, but not everything does, and I don't know. It looks like an interesting game.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I'll have to do. Is I think it's on backerkit, if I remember the article correct. And so
I guess here's my thing is one thing that I do think is funny is everybody says like Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli for like nice anime, and like the only animes I've really seen, the first anime I ever really watched was Princess Mononoke. There's quite a bit of violence in that.
Oh, no, there is, but then there's
body horror.
Don't get me wrong. There's freaky parts of My Neighbor Totoro, right? Because Japanese culture touches on that a lot, but when you look at the fans of that, it's not usually the same people that are into Night of the Living Dead. Even if they like Princess Mononoke.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I like Princess Mononoke, but I might focus.
I like Miyazaki a lot. I like Studio Ghibli a lot. The stories are great. It's not what I watch all the time, but when I do get a chance to watch them, I do because I really like them.
Yeah,
I was just calling it out because
I think it makes sense. Well, yeah, no, and the game, the other game that we talked about before, the
Golden Sky Stories.
That really does speak to some of those much softer.
It does. It does. That's another example. Sure.
I just think it's like I said. I guess my whole thing is like, I feel like you can do games like that maybe better without them being D&D games. I think it's funny that everybody tries to fit. It gets back to something that I've mentioned before on different recordings of people being like, I know D&D. I don't really want to look at other games, so I'm just going to shoehorn my idea in this D&D box, and it just isn't always necessary.
There's better mechanisms. D&D is a combat. D&D at its heart, still is a combat system.
Mm-hmm. It's a combat simulator, yeah.
In my mind, it doesn't mean that you don't do other things, but
I guess that's kind of one of my points. Not sorry to cut you up, but I guess that's kind of my point. Like the skill system in D&D doesn't seem to be robust enough to support a game where you're doing like mystery stuff. Whereas there's other games where you roll a dice, and if you're successful, you get to ask GM specific questions to kind of guide the narrative. Right. And D&D has none of that. And I'm sure it's fun, and I'm sure it's sweet, and I look forward.
It's like you said. I'm investigating the room. I rolled a 2. I don't find any clues in the room, and that was the one room with the one clue that was the proverbial straw that breaks the case wide open, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't find it.
Well, there's always that's GM's advice that I always give people that ask me questions about GM advice. They say, I say, if you want the players to know something, never, ever have them roll dice for it.
Exactly.
Because they will almost always fail. And then if it's the key thing that you had that they needed, you just should have given it to them because they're never gonna figure it out.
I think that's kind of there's system agnostic advice about how to run mysteries and stuff like that. And it's usually about not gating story advancing clues behind failable situations, because it's it's like one of the things I think we talked about before when we were running mysteries is if you have a piece of information that they need to know, have multiple ways to get it, because as a DM you should never go, okay, well, I have this very linear breadcrumb path that they're going to follow, because that's not how players work. And obviously based on our group experience and how we went through Basin and stuff like that, you have to start with a loaf of bread.
We didn't even stay in the right hotel, Mike.
We
didn't even stay in the right hotel.
Everything's happening in this location. We're going to stay 3 states away.
Exactly. And you have to be able to say, okay, well, these are the key pieces of information they need to be able to at least pull back and look at the mystery on their, let's call it a murder board, because I don't have anything better for it. They look at the murder board or whatever, and they go, okay, well, I have the piece of information is that the witches are in town, or there's these travelers in towns that are witches. I have this is when it started and happens to coincide when this other person vanished, and you start to give them multiple ways to get that information. And but I don't think that's system necessarily
that is system agnostic a little bit, and we've drifted a little bit away from the role playing thing, the chill tea time games. But I will add, the thing is the reason that I always bring it up for anyone is it is a new GM thing that happens a lot, where they'll have the adventurers roll for information that's vital, and then realize that they don't have a way to get them back on track. Mm-hmm. It's happened to me, it's happened to you, it's happened to another friend of mine who frequently runs games, and we've discussed it at length. It's a weird thing, because when you're in the moment, you want to add that tension of, well, maybe they won't find the clue, and that's cool and all, but then they don't, and then it's oh, well, the game's stuck now because they'll never figure this out.
Never.
But back to the chill tea time games. I'm just saying that it just doesn't seem a game that needs that needs dice, really.
So here's more incentive. First of all, if you haven't already looked at Teatime Adventures and have decided to back it, There are the pledge levels that they offer on backerkit. One of them does include what was it? They have 66 dice, extra large tea infused D20 with black leaves inside. So they have tea infused dice. They're really in on this.
They're leaning
But
in
if you,
on that. That's
but
good.
there is actually pledge levels that include tea in them. So
Well,
they
of
will
course.
send you, I guess, artisanal style teas and stuff like that.
Of course.
Green Branch Festival and Rains of Star Song, Rose Possum tea, plushies and stuff, you know. So it's like, so I was listening. I really do like that they lean into it. And it kind of reminds me of another game that and I wonder if they're not the same people, but there was another game that was like coffee based. Did you guys ever hear of that?
I don't think I did. Look that up. I'm going to make one comment. I like the fact that they talk about having a food and tea pairing kind of theme, kind of to set the mood, right? Because that's kind of one of the themes of the game. It's people getting together and discussing the clues and you know, figuring stuff out. I like that. I think anything. I don't need a ton of ambiance usually to play, but it isn't that I don't appreciate it when it happens. You know what I mean? And some people really love it. I look at ambiance. Go ahead, Brent.
No, I think it's really cool. I think that's really cool. And if you're going to have a gimmick, you might as well lean into it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I was right. This is the same studio that did the role-playing game Ink.
Okay.
And so Ink is basically, it's what they say. It's like battle your way through the spirit world in Ink, a new tabletop RPG from Snowbright. And one of the quotes is like, Ink tells a tale of the afterlife with the cozy grace of an old friend, another masterpiece by Snowbright. And I believe, like, I don't remember if there was a tea or something, but I thought there was coffee involved in this. And let me see. Maybe this isn't the right. It
says it's a coffee fueled game.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. You get a 24-ounce of Inky custom roasted coffee blends from the Many Worlds Tavern to serve at your table.
Well, good for them. They found a niche and they are exploiting it.
Like I said, if you have a niche, just a niche or a gimmick, you lean into that 100%.
Yeah, but the art for it in this game as well was really good. I think I suggested this to one of our mutual friends, and I think they actually backed it. I'll have to see if they did, but I believe they picked up one of them because they looked at it and they really liked the dice box that they had included for it in the dice, but I think it was like a really high pledge level. So I don't know if they went that high.
No, I think everybody, like I said, any game, I think everybody, I'm not questioning, and I know people will love it, and I'm not questioning that at all. I just always have the question of, if this is the type of game you're going to run, and all people always defer to it as D&D. Is D&D the right system for it? And I just think so often you could, and this is partially, I guess, you should support indie game designer thing too. Not support Hasbro, because like there's lots of indie games that have beautiful mechanics that probably do that better than do your style of game, potentially better than Dungeons and Dragons.
And maybe you're right. Maybe they used it because they just wanted to kind of staple onto the 5th edition name, or maybe that was just low bar of entry because people already played, because it's already played by so many people.
It is good marketing. In reading like system agnostic content, quite a bit about system agnostic content lately. Like that is one of the things that people say. If you can attach something that other people look at to your product, like it makes selling your product a lot easier.
Yeah. And you know what I mean? It works.
Yeah, it isn't. I don't think I'm saying it's a bad choice, but I think I'm with you, Brent, where it's stylistically there may be other things that enrich what you're trying to build more than, you know, rule sets that will enrich more than 5th edition.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool to have it just be its own. I guess what I'm saying is I think it would be cool if it was just kind of its own system, like Fiasco, like you have a Fiasco style game, except it's about, you know, your Teatime Adventures, where it's so much more rules light and more relaxing than, you know.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, we'll see.
But people also like to roll d20s. Don't get me wrong. So
I like chucking dice.
They're hitting a niche on that too, I suppose. So
yeah. So I guess with that being said,
not everybody has built up the ire of throwing dice that I have, where it feels like I need vengeance every time I roll badly.
Well, I think there's a lot of years of bad dice rolling in there. So when you're like, oh, another D20 system, I almost feel like I hear you say like another game I'll fail at. Like
That's
I
a
mean, I
lot of
could
ones.
be,
That's
Yeah.
a lot of ones coming down the pipe. That's all I'm saying.
If Brent threw out a set of dice for every time he rolled, back to back, say under fives, he would have more invested in dice than all the rest of us combined.
I will say this: I have been at Warhammer 40K tournaments where I've been playing with people that just went, "Man, I'm sorry," because I am rolling so bad.
yeah, it was. I wanted to win, but I didn't expect to rout you because of bad dice rolls.
I didn't
Like,
expect to be kicking a puppy.
Ouch.
so with that note, do you guys want to move over and talk about Monday's game and how this last session went a little bit? Because we did talk about skill checks, and I think that they kind of relate to each other.
Sure.
Because there was because I was thinking about it after Monday's game, and I feel like there's some stuff that it kind of is interesting, but also kind of weird, because it's like I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, what exactly is a cinematic game, right? Like what's the point of playing a cinematic game? And it's like, well, you play a cinematic game so that you make narratively interesting choices that may not mechanically be done. And you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's mechanics. You don't want the mechanics to get in the face of a cool story or characters.
Right.
And so I was like, well, and so in terms of last Monday's session, I was like, well, I think the idea was interesting, but then I think I messed it up a little bit, because I think it could have still been cool to not necessarily, well, not to spoil anybody as to what's going to happen on that. So if you want to watch Monday's episode, don't watch this first. Watch Monday's episode and come back to this.
Just mute and watch our faces.
Just mute. We're probably not going to put a time, like a little thing that tells you when we're done.
We could use the listeners, so just mute it and leave it playing, and then come back later.
Yeah, we need the listen time. But the idea is that, it's like, I think I was caught so off guard by you guys just bowling into the situation kind of like head first, that I'm kind of curious if I had decided that the more logical outcome to that was that, because the appropriately named ships, that the Sky Piercers, I was like, well, what if they would have just rammed them? What if they didn't have the speed to necessarily prevent at least one of the ships from catching them, and they engaged in some swashbuckling or something like that, and because it seems like the long shot to just kind of like make a run for it.
No, I mean, in any sort of pirate show, like there's always a moment where pirate ships do that. Like, we just need to run for it because they have us outgunned. Like, I know a lot of pirate type movies that happened to, and so that's probably where that was inspired by. But like, yeah, it would have made sense if they would have just rammed us. Like, I guess my thing about it is what's the difference between rolling multiple times and just having us roll once?
That's a good question. Well,
I mean, isn't it? It didn't happen on Monday because we talked about it after we played. But isn't it just to try and build tension, like to have some amount of successes and failures before you get to an ultimate success, and take some time? It's storytelling and tension, I think.
Yeah.
And and this is not anything against Mike. It just didn't fully work on Monday night. I didn't feel a lot of tension. I'm with Brent. It felt like we were rolling a lot of dice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and that's the thing, is I don't know. And in my gaming history of those, and this again, this isn't about you, Mike. I don't think anybody has been successful in building the type of tension that they're trying to with the skill challenge thing. It just feels like kind of like you're rolling dice to roll dice. And I don't know if it's a merit. I don't know if it's a like a narrative deficit on everybody's part, or if it's, I don't know, or if it's just a mind block on my part where it's like, oh, we're just rolling dice.
So, because I was thinking about that, and I mean, ultimately, I was hoping it would be a little bit more tension filled than it was, and I was kind of like, oh, well, I don't think I hit the mark, and that's not to say that I'm going to give up on trying to create tension through sword swinging means, right? Because I do think that there's a lot of value in creating tension outside of combat. I think that we've done it successfully in other games. I think that there's a couple things with Fabula Ultima, and I don't want this to turn into a critique of the system, but the first thing is obviously I'm going to work on, on my cinematic components. I believe, one of the points that we touched on is that I think I missed some opportunity to add tension through just kind of the cinematography and descriptions of how it's going on and what you guys are experiencing. But I think before even doing that is that understanding kind of like what your actions are, the consequences and the stakes. Like, oh, well, your attempt to get past this vessel is going to be, and I think, do you guys feel like it might be okay to telegraph that a little bit? You're going to be rolling 3 times in this case. And the reason why we choose 3 times is because I'm giving you like 3 points in which there's an opportunity for you to be overtaken and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
I don't think that would break it or anything.
No, I
don't think it would break it.
I think the stakes in that situation, I think taking a step back from the story and offering the stakes in that situation are important, because I think that will, because then what you're saying is mechanically there's going to be tension. It's not just going to be narrative tension, it's going to be mechanical tension. Like, and you're kind of setting that mood. And what I guess what I was just thinking about is in the Vaesen game, which no, don't look for it because it's not one we recorded. In the Vaesen game, there was when we found the evidence that made assured that the guy was the one that summoned the demon pig. And remember when we ran out of the
that felt
the
tense.
lighthouse? That whole chase scene felt tense, whether we were being chased or not. Like there was tension to that scene, and I'm trying to remember. Like, and we didn't do any dice roll. Like, I don't think there was any real dice rolling.
No.
And so I think and I don't know what, and I can't put my finger on what made that tense and not.
I think, because I'm curious, and this might be my one critique, is that it's like you got like the stakes of failure. I don't know if it's like, and I think that's why it might need to be explained, is because you guys don't know the stakes for your failure as much in Fabula Ultima. Because I think it's pretty much what doesn't have to be said, that if you're in D&D and you try said dumb idea that, like, what was that guy Dibbledorf Flint who would like, just charge in full of rusty razor blades and hope for the best. Yeah. Like, I mean, if your approach is that every time, there's going to be a situation in which the DM just can't save you from yourself, and
he's
your
talking
outcome
about me. He's talking about me, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Did you Leroy Jenkins something, Brent?
No,
I have a tendency to, yes.
You're giving the impression that you do things that are crazy and without the party's approval. No, you just do things that are crazy. The party approves.
I am not, in your last D&D game, I'm not the guy that changed myself to look like a goblin and tried to infiltrate the goblin stronghold without being able to speak goblin. That was not my fault.
That was still probably one of my favorite.
It worked. Somebody had to speak.
Yeah, it was still my favorite.
It worked until he walked up to the goblin and goblin went, "Hey, what do you want?" You're right.
I want to speak in common. That's what I want to do.
Well, apparently, if you play Baldur's Gate 3, the language isn't a barrier, which is kind of interesting. There's a lot of goblin talking there, but it was funny because he walked up and they were like, "Oh, what's up?" And he's just like, "Do you speak goblin?" And the guy's like, "No." Then you have no idea what they just said.
They went. Blah, blah, blah.
So no, those kind of plans are fun too sometimes. But it's just, I think that because you guys don't have like an easy, like in D&D, like you heroically perish. Like there's no, I mean, you could use the same ideas that Fabula Ultima does, is that you could have them knocked out and stuff like that. But there is D&D has TPKs, so that if your party has that stake that they ultimately know, oh, I failed and our entire party died.
Well, I think it would have been good in this case, because like that never actually crossed my mind that we might ruin the boat. Like I never even thought of that. So I think you probably saying that probably would have made it a little bit more tense. Like I guess again, like never having done very much in the way of like pirate games or any game with a boat. Like the boat doesn't feel like an extension of my character so much. And I think maybe that's where the disconnect comes from. Like in the Vaesen game, like my character and the party felt like they were going to be impacted by me not making it back to the town in time. Like we weren't going to prove it. This was this guy and stuff. Whereas in the Vaesen game, it was kind of like, oh, and I don't know what the disconnect was. Is like, oh, what happens if we Like
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think we were gonna fail. Like I guess it didn't even cross my mind that we might fail.
Yeah,
Sure.
and so I think that's something that I have to work on a little bit is that, because especially in that game, it might have been better to kind of outline what those failure things could have been, just so you kind of start thinking about them yourself. Because, I mean, we're doing a lot of theater of the mind, so obviously we have those things to worry about. And then I think the other critique of Fabula Ultima is that if you're not used to the kind of cinematic approach that they take, then we miss other opportunities. Like, and we discussed this afterwards. Distance in Fabula Ultima isn't really a thing. So much like when you're JRPG, they just kind of swing and they hit a monster that's floating in the air at the other end of the screen. The same thing can be said about JRPGs, and so combat is done differently. You're much more fantastical about it. So there were some opportunities for you guys to do things other than just sit there and take the hits kind of stuff. And I should have done a better job, obviously, explaining that at the time. But I think my brain just wasn't.
I think we just all missed a little bit of engagement in the scene because I mean
it wasn't just you. Sorry.
No, the running away, the like I said, that's pretty like the fleeing the boat scene and taking the hits. Like that's that's a pretty common like space travel / sea travel sort of thing. So I think that tension was fine. I never would have thought of like JRPG jumping from down over to the other boat and like damaging the boat and then trying to jump back to my boat. Like I never would have thought of that.
No, but I was just thinking more like, with Jeff's, tinker ability, he could have used some of his stuff and he could have done amazing things. He could have let a bomb basically float behind the thing in a way that might have hit the other ship. And then now it's a two-way combat.
I was so worried about navigating. So I wasn't fully engaged the way I needed to be.
And that's one thing about games that have like crazy abilities is like everyone has to remember they have the crazy abilities. Versus like Pathfinder where it's like, nah, you just shoot a bow at them. Yeah. Or you throw a fireball. Like if you have crazy abilities, like especially across potentially 3 classes.
Or more, because you can have 3 at once, but you could master classes prior to this.
So like, well, at like 6th level, you could have 2 levels and 3 different classes, which is 3 different abilities in each class. So like remembering all of those abilities, like that could be it's not a starter game. That could be very tricky, especially if you have crazy abilities like the Alchemist, which is like, hey, I dropped this potion on the floor and everybody's healed or dies.
Yeah. I throw it and my targets were...
Let's roll that dice.
Yeah. No, it's good though. But I think it's interesting because I think just even looking at it in hindsight, my brain just starts going, okay, well, this is how you handled it here. You could do it better next time. And so, it helps me understand. And I think having that conversation helps you guys understand too, that you can be a little bit more wacky in how you approach and not take things. And I think we all suffer from this sometimes, especially if we're coming from a more strict system like Pathfinder, is that, I think we kind of put ourselves in a box and we basically say,
I think I tunnel visioned. I think I got locked in on,
and we
it's the running is going to work or the running's not going to work. And then I have to worry about combat.
Right.
Because we weren't in a warship.
Yeah, and I think another thing about games like this, and this is something that I struggled with running with these games as well as playing in them, is like epic games where you're an epic hero. Like I have a tendency not to think of failure as an option because like it's like I'm an epic hero, I'm gonna be fine. Whereas like there was more tension in the Vaesen game because it's like, nah, I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
I'm just a hobo who could die in the snow. Like,
and that's exactly it. Like that failure outcome of you like, oh, I just ran into a Vaesen. They're impossibly difficult for me as a human to do anything to them. And so I could just die because I ran into a hellhound. Oops.
Right. Whereas in these games, they encourage, they encourage your character to feel like, oh, I can take on any situation. And that removes, in my opinion, a lot of tension.
But then even if you do fail and you ultimately lose all of your health points or whatever, you still only end up either surrendering or taking a noble sacrifice, right? So it's like you could end up with a failure. And that's my point, is that I think I could have changed that. So if you guys did fail, I mean, easily I could say, okay, well, they take you prisoner. They confiscate your ship, take you prisoner. And then now you have a different trajectory towards the goal that you're trying to achieve is now, you have to take the the prison escapee route or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So they like,
Yeah.
I just at the top of my head, that didn't come up to me. I was just like, oh, they ran. I really hadn't considered that scenario for them just to like jump through the blockade. And I was like, oh gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
And here's my weekly reminder: your characters in your game that you're running will never do what you think they're going to.
Yeah, I had kind of tentative plans for like, oh, we wait till evening and try to go past them. Oh, okay, well let's see how we build the tension with that. Oh, we try to jump from cloud to cloud to evade them. Oh, that's good. And I was like, well, we directly attack them. I thought that might happen, but I never thought you guys would like just go, hey, and then give them a bird and just.
I also am the I kick in the door guy. I have a tendency to play those characters a lot. Well, what do you guys do? I don't know. No one can make a decision. Okay, I just run up and I kick open the door.
We should have done the Quigley Down Under, Brent. We should have been like, I'm going to sit here and wait until 3 of these guys line up, and I'm going to snipe all 3 at once.
Hey, I mean, that's fine too. I hadn't thought of the Quigley Down Under. I'll have to keep that on my list of possible outcomes.
I also hadn't thought of quiggling them.
Quigglying them.
Quigglying.
Sorry, that is an underrated movie. You have to like westerns, but it's an underrated movie.
It is an I know several people who really love it, but I don't think if I've seen it, I haven't seen it in a long time.
I
watch it with your dad. I think your dad would appreciate it. Maybe he would.
Dad's seen it. Okay. Yeah, Mom and Dad love that movie.
It's a good movie, but I obviously haven't seen it myself in a long time. Wasn't that Tom Selleck?
It was Tom Selleck. Yeah. I just love the whole, and it was.
Let's be honest, it was Tom Selleck's mustache.
It was and Tom Selleck's mustache, but the bad guy was the bad guy from Die Hard.
Oh,
Alan Rickman.
It was Alan Rickman was the bad guy. Where he's like, I think he's been sitting out there in the hills waiting for 2 of you idiots to line up like that all day.
I don't think that gets mentioned often enough that Alan Rickman is in Quigley Down Under. That's for sure.
No, like I said, it's surprisingly good. Sorry, that's a total aside, but we could have done the Quigley.
Well, honestly, now that we've talked about it, I might have to go watch it again because I literally haven't seen it for years.
Yeah, I might have to watch it too.
I watch it every couple of years, not religiously, but you know what I mean. Like, it's one of those. It's sometimes I just get in the mood, or it's on. Like it's one of those movies that if I'm ever, I don't flip channels as much as I used to. I'm that old. I used to flip channels. But, it's one of those movies that almost no matter where I caught it, I'm like, oh, it's Quigley Down. I've got to watch this.
So since we're diverging into movies, you know a movie that I watched every couple of years? Cobra. Because it's the most
Stallone movie?
It's the most ridiculous.
It was pretty over the top. I saw that in high school in the theater when it came out.
And part of the reasons that I watched
it was over the top for us as high school kids. Like, you know what I mean?
One of the reasons that I watched it all the time is I'm obsessed with the fact that I really think that the hidden story there is there's this insane cop who says he's part of the zombie squad, that there is no zombie squad because there's no one else on it, and they just let him go out and kill people. Because they just talk about the zombie squad, and there's like, he's part of the zombie squad, and it's like, squad means more than one person. And you don't see anybody else from the zombie squad ever.
But they're not important to the story, Brent. Obviously, they're out doing
a lot of things that aren't important to the story.
Well, you're making me. I'm going to have to watch Cobra and probably then Tango and Cash right after. Because the idea of Sylvester Stallone after playing that whole string of rogue cowboy characters, right, where the rules don't apply to me, being the button-up one,
straight-laced one,
the straight-laced one in Tango and Cash was kind of funny.
I watched Cobra and Commando in a double feature one day.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And
Commando is better than people give it credit.
There's a lot of testosterone that was just floating in the air. Commando is better than a lot of people give it credit for because, man, it is maybe the most action-y action movie, one-liner heavy movie ever.
No, it was very formulaic.
Yeah.
Like it was very formulaic. So my partner and I 2 weeks ago were talking about movies and stuff that we liked and that we would watch. And and you know, everybody likes, not everything we like won Oscars, right? And I had to admit that Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man is one of those movies that I'm just like, yeah, I know it's not any good. Yes, I like it. I can't explain it. There's something about Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke on screen together.
Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, I love because it's totally a Shadowrun game.
It kind of is.
It
I didn't think about it
100%.
that way.
It 100% is a Shadowrun game. You have insane drugs with guys in black trench coats that are bulletproof. You have a collection of people that should not be hijacking anything ever. You have a cowboy. You have a biker.
No, it's kind of, yeah. I never thought of it that way.
It's 100% a Shadowrun game.
But I mean, but objectively, like whatever part of you is a movie critic, it's not a good movie.
No, it's fun though.
It's
fun though.
It's
and
fun.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, but sometimes like that like is it Oscar worthy doesn't really come up enough because honestly like the hardest part about watching movies is there's a piece of me that's like I like to watch movies that are good and make me think and like withstand scrutiny, right? There's like a piece of me that likes that because there was a movie I watched that everyone seemed to like that I think it was that was the name Stellaris or something like that. That they released I thought they had like a 1970s version and they put out like a mid 2000s or Solaris.
Yeah, Danny Boyle did a version of it, I think.
And it was like, and there was a lot of people that really liked the movie.
If you're not in the right mood, that movie is boring. I like the movie and I've seen it and was like, I wasn't in the mood to watch this and I don't know why I stopped. I stayed stuck with it.
The weird part about it for us was that me and my friend, we walked out of it going, that was a pretty decent movie. And then as we kind of like picked at it, we were like, is that really a good movie?
No, Solar.
It was a Solar?
The one with the sun where they're traveling.
Yeah. I couldn't remember what it was, but is that what it is? It's called Solar.
Yep, it's Solar.
Yeah, it was just it was like it was a mid 2000s movie. I don't know. I'll have to look it up, but it was like we just picked at it until we both ultimately decided we hated it. Like
was the original? Was the first one?
It's Sunshine. Sorry, it's Sunshine is what it is.
Is it Sunshine?
And it has nothing to do with Solaris. No, Sunshine. It's the premise of the movie is they are flying on the ship because I love this movie and I don't care about your logic loopholes. Is they're on they're on the ship and they're going toward the sun because they're going to use atomic bomb to restart the sun because the Earth is gonna die, and they run into this other ship and they find a guy who should be dead.
Okay, so this was the Danny Boyle one.
Yeah, it's not Solaris, it's Sunshine.
Okay.
And I love
my apologies,
but you're right. There are loopholes in the movie, but I don't care because I love it.
Well, no, but it was one of those ones that a lot of people seemed to like it at the time, and I was just like,
I don't think a lot of people liked it.
It's not bad. It's got a 7.2 on IMDb, which
it's got a cult following, but I don't think I didn't do well in the theater. I don't think.
Well, it only in our little
box office
town, it was
32 million, and the budget was 40 million. So that is not a success in Hollywood.
No, you're right. That is not successful. But yeah, no. But then if you move that up with what was the one where they were all on that spaceship and then they just kind of woke up? Pandorum, yeah, that one was awesome. I love that movie.
That is also the most funny explanation of Pandorum I've ever heard. They're on a spaceship and they all woke up.
How did you? Yeah, what was that?
That's some distillation right there.
Sorry,
dude wakes up on a spaceship.
Well, maybe he wakes up on a spaceship.
I can't say it's wrong because that is what happens on multiple levels. That's what happens actually.
It is. It's true. It has a surprising cast, and they just wake up. Like
I guess I have a better handle on accepting loopholes in movies now. Fallacies when I realize that Indiana Jones ends the same way, whether or not Indiana Jones is in the movie or not.
It's
Nazis. Nazis find the box. Nazis get melted by the box.
Indiana Jones was just the way you viewed the movie.
Yep.
Just you needed a perspective to look through, I guess. No, it's true. But well, and I mean, like I said, it's just sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for me. And so if anybody likes the movie Sunshine, I'm sorry. You can like it. I'm not judging you. You can love it. Including you,
I
Brett.
love it. And that's fine. Like I said,
Yeah, who cares? I'm not going to judge you for your bad movies.
if you tell me you don't like Avatar, we can get a fist fight though. For the record, I've never seen Avatar ever. Anyone?
I was about to say I don't like Avatar. I mean, I like Avatar is like one of those weird meh movies. Like for as much money as it is, and how much money it makes.
The only way I'll ever like an Avatar movie is if there's space marines in it, like real space marines, like 40K space marines.
They're working on it. I mean, seems like that's the direction they're going. Big robots, giant blue bodies. I don't know. Aren't space marines giant blue bodies? Just kidding.
You broke my brain a little.
That is a stretch. Yeah, that hurt. That hurt.
But yeah, so Fabio Ultimate game, it's fun. We're still trying to figure out chases.
Yeah. We're still trying to figure out some cinematic components to make it an even better game. And so I guess this is where we put it out to you guys. Anybody that's listening at this point, if you have techniques or things that you do to make your own games more cinematic, or what you focus on to help make your players realize the stakes a little bit better, share it. We'd love to hear what you have to say. You know, we're both, I wouldn't say that we're masters and students, but we're lifelong learners in the RPG space. And so we'd be curious to see what other people experience in that. So, and with that, I mean, I think we can go ahead and wrap up this week's episode. So I guess I'll send it over to Jeff, but just as a reminder, we try to live stream on Monday, although next week we're off next week.
No, I think next week we're playing. There won't be a recorded episode next week.
Right. We'll do the live stream on Monday.
And then the week after that, there won't be a live stream.
Okay. Yeah. So next Monday, there'll still be a live stream. Next week, there won't be a fully recorded podcast episode. And then the following week, we also won't have a live stream. But just to give you an idea as to a little bit of our informal schedule that we obviously all remembered, because I was close. I was like so close. And so if you want to pop by, stop in, we are planning on, once we kind of wrap up our session, to hang out for a little bit. If anybody's there, chat, see what you guys are up to. So just come by, say hello, let us know how we're doing. And Jeff, do you want to tell everybody how to find us on not X or Twitter?
Yeah, if you want to engage with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Threads, and X at Rollwise. And if you want to email us, it's rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, and as always, please remember, thank you for joining us this week, as well as every week that you do join us. And as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody. Thank you. Night, everybody.